Have you ever just stopped and wondered, what is actually going on inside my own head? I mean, really, for pretty much all of human history, our own mind was a complete mystery, this sort of ghost in the machine that nobody could explain. But then, a little over 100 years ago, a few pioneers decided to try something totally radical. They tried to turn the mind into a science. So let's dive in and see how they even started to tackle that seemingly impossible question.
And this quote, this is pretty much ground zero. In 1890, the American philosopher and psychologist William James just comes out with this incredible definition. He said psychology is the science of mental life. Now, that might not sound crazy to us today, but back then, it was revolutionary. He was saying that our thoughts, our feelings, our consciousness, all that stuff wasn't just philosophical fluff. It was a real, tangible thing that we could and should study scientifically. This was basically the starting gun for the entire field. And right there, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the one massive problem that these early psychologists kept smashing into. You can't put a thought under a microscope. You can't weigh a feeling on a scale. So how in the world do you build a science around something you can't even see? This one question, this single challenge, is what would ignite a massive debate for decades about what psychology was even supposed to be. Okay, so let's get into it. To answer that big question, two major figures stepped up to the plate, and they took completely different approaches. They really laid the groundwork for everything that came after, becoming, in a lot of ways, the founding fathers of this whole new science of the mind. So what we're looking at here are two totally different starting points, about a decade apart. You've got Wilhelm Wundt in Germany, who in 1879 opens the very first lab dedicated to psychological experiments. That's the hands-on, practical beginning. Then, in 1890, you have William James over in America, who lays down the philosophical foundation. It's kind of like one guy built the workshop, and the other one drew the blueprint for what they were supposed to build inside.
And their approaches were just wildly different. On one hand, you had Wundt. He was a structuralist. He thought that if you could break consciousness down into its tiniest little pieces, individual sensations, feelings, images, you could understand how it was built, kind of like how a chemist understands a molecule by looking at the atoms. But then you have James, the functionalist. He didn't really care about the what. He was all about the why. Why do we have a mind in the first place? What's its purpose? How does it help us survive?
And with these two big competing ideas on the table, the floodgates just burst open. I mean, this wasn't some quiet, polite academic debate. This was a full-on battle for the soul of this new science. What came next was a clash of huge, powerful schools of thought, and every single one of them claimed they had the one true answer to understanding the human mind. So let's meet our first major contender in this fight. This next school of thought shifted the focus completely inward, into the dark, hidden corners of our minds, and it asked a really unsettling question. What if you're not actually the one driving the bus? And of course, this brings us to one of the most famous and controversial names in all of psychology, Sigmund Freud. His idea was absolutely radical. He said that the most important part of you, the part that's really running the show, is completely hidden from you in what he called the unconscious. Think of an iceberg. Your conscious mind is just that little tip you can see above the water. But underneath, that's where all your deep fears, your secret desires, and your buried memories are, just simmering away and pulling the strings.
For Freud, your personality is basically a constant chaotic war between three parts of yourself. First, you've got the id. This is like the little devil on your shoulder. It's pure instinct, it wants what it wants, and it wants it now. Then you have the superego. That's the little angel on your other shoulder, your moral conscience, telling you all the things you should and shouldn't do. And stuck right in the middle, that's the ego. That's you, trying to find a realistic compromise between the two. Your entire personality, Freud said, is just the result of this endless internal battle.
Now, as you can probably imagine, not everybody was on board with Freud's deep dive into the invisible world of the unconscious. In fact, a new group came along that thought it was all unscientific nonsense. They started a full-blown rebellion. And this quote from John B. Watson, who basically founded behaviorism, just says it all. He's saying, forget mental life, forget the unconscious. If we want psychology to be a real science like physics or biology, we have to focus only on what we can actually see and measure. And what can you see and measure? Behavior. That's it. And this is their whole philosophy in a nutshell. For the behaviorists, the mind itself was a black box. You can't see what's going on in there, so why even waste your time guessing?
All that really matters is the input, the stimulus from the outside world, and the output, the observable behavior that comes out. Everything that happens in between, irrelevant, unknowable, not science.
So another huge name, B.F. Skinner, took this idea and just ran with it. He argued that pretty much all of our behavior is shaped by a really simple process. Step 1, something happens around you. Step 2, you react, you do something. And step 3, that action is followed by a consequence, either a reward or a punishment. You do something good, you get a cookie. You do something bad, you get a timeout. From this point of view, we're basically just the sum of our learned behaviors shaped by a lifetime of rewards and punishments.
So let's just take a step back. We've got one group saying we're prisoners of our dark past, and another group saying we're basically just robots programmed by our environment. It's a little bleak, right? Well, a whole new group of thinkers thought so too, and they came up with a radical third option.
This new movement, which became known as humanistic psychology, really grew out of this feeling of, hey, wait a minute. They looked at Freudian psychoanalysis and said, you're only focused on what's broken in people. And they looked at behaviorism and said, you're stripping away everything that makes us human, our hopes, our dreams, our free will. They felt both sides were missing the point entirely.
So along come thinkers like Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, and they just completely flipped the script. They argued that we're not just driven by dark urges or rewards. They believed that deep down, every single one of us has this powerful natural drive to grow, to improve, and to reach our full potential, what they called self-actualization. They put things like free will, creativity, and the basic goodness of people right back in the center of psychology.
When you see it all laid out like this, the clash is just so clear. You've got psychoanalysis and behaviorism, which are both deterministic. That's just a fancy way of saying you're not really in the driver's seat. Your past or your environment is. Then humanism comes along and offers this incredibly optimistic view that says, no, you have free will and your main drive is to grow. You really couldn't get 3 more different answers to the basic question of what it means to be a person.
So after all this, after all these brilliant minds and their massive conflicting theories, you have to ask the big question: who won? Who was right in the end? And here's the amazing, kind of beautiful answer to that question. No one did. Not really. And that, it turns out, is the best thing that could have possibly happened.
You see, modern psychology isn't just one single theory anymore. It's more like a giant toolkit. A therapist today doesn't have to pick a side. Instead, they can reach into the toolbox and pull out what works. They might explore your childhood experiences, which is straight out of Freud. They can help you create a reward system to break a bad habit. That's pure behaviorism. And they can focus on your strengths and your goals for the future, which is classic humanism. The battle didn't create one winner. It gave us a whole toolbox full of options.
And that brings us to the final question, the one that's all about you. When you think about your own life, your motivations, your quirks, your dreams, which of these ideas feels most true to you? Do you feel driven by deep forces from your past, shaped by the world around you? Or do you feel like you're the one writing your own story? The real answer, just like psychology itself, is probably a complicated, fascinating mix of all of them.